so excited to be here with Lauren Marsh and Ridgeline Construction. We're going to hear all about your background today, but I'm always just impressed to see a woman working in what is predominantly known as a man's world.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know we didn't talk about that before, but you don't necessarily think about women doing amazing things in the world of construction.
That's
so
true.
I am really eager to dive in.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm so excited. And we just found out before we started shooting that we share a very deep connection to both of us, which is Logan Kate, who was one of Flourish's OG hires. Shout out to Logan. So I know both, they go to the same church, Lauren and Logan, which is great. So her to death.
We love Logan so much.
Yes, she's amazing. But thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes. So let's just start with a little bit of background. So you are currently president of Ridgeline Construction, which does a variety of different things. I've learned all about your company over the last couple of days. So, but tell us just a little bit about kind of how you got to where you are now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I will say, like every little girl doesn't dream about being a roofer, but
they don't.
I always joke about that. I'm like, this was not my dream, necessarily growing up, but I very much enjoy it. I very much enjoy being in this space where it's predominantly male and trying to just grow the women side of these businesses, because women are needed very much so in the construction field, I think. But so I was born and raised here in Madison and went to Bob Jones, and so my roots are here, and a lot of my family worked on the arsenal, so it's always kind of been a lot of engineers in the family, but my stepdad had always been in the building side of things. And so one summer when I turned 16, they were like, you're gonna get a job. And I was like, doing what? Because I grew up dancing. I danced at the dance company, and that was all that I did, and did dance team. And so I was like, okay, job, all right. So he got me a job with the home builder that he worked for. He was an estimator and worked on plans and stuff, and so I was an intern there. And I guess really, like, when I was really thinking about where did this all start, that would be where it started. So he got me a job there, and then my oldest daughter was born when I was like a month before I graduated high school, so I was a teen mom. And so one of the my boss there before moved on to another builder and remembered me, and so right after I graduated, she called and was like, would you like a job? And I was like, well, I need a job, so yes, I would love a job. And so I was an administrative assistant and just got to kind of see all aspects, like the home building side of things, the management side of home building, the sales side of home building. So that's kind of where that all started. And then I actually met my husband there, and so he worked for the home builder, and then one thing led to another, and we ended up deciding to start this company. There was just a need in the marketplace for it.
And you guys talked about that. So I've just in learning a little bit about you and your background, you guys definitely saw an opportunity for growth where there was a big gap. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there was a big gap in just as far as even for new construction, roofing for new construction, they were having a hard time finding good, dependable roofers. And so we kind of came up with this model of offering the material as well as the labor. So, it's a turnkey package. It's one less thing for, the contractors to have to worry about, because we're going to take care of the material, we're going to take care of the labor. So, and then from there we grew into siding. So we do a lot of siding and exterior work, which is a little more, fun and exciting to, people that need a roof. It's not just like you wake up one day, you're like, oh, I think I want a roof, but siding can really change the look of your home. So that part's kind of more the fun side, I guess you could say, where you can really kind of design. But we also do gutters and soffits, and so all kinds of exterior work on new construction, existing. We've really, really pushed into the commercial market as well. I
was going to ask about that. You do commercial as well as residential.
So in all the places that we're located. So we have 4 offices, with this being our main one here in the Huntsville area. And then we have one in South Alabama in the Mobile area, and then Pensacola and Tampa is our newest, which we talked about. So of course commercial is huge everywhere we're at, but we mainly do commercial here. We're kind of growing in the other markets with commercial as well. But this is our 11th year being in business, which is crazy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I used to say, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, but now I have to say longer than that. But if you would have told me 12 years ago that I'd be working with my husband, I would probably told you you're crazy, because the husband-wife dynamic can sometimes be hard, but we we've really learned to have a good balance. You know, he has the things he handles, and I have the things that I handle, and we can meet back in the middle, you know, on the big things. So it's worked out really well.
That has worked out well.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. There's a couple of things that you brought up. So I love how, number one, the opportunity that you had as an intern kind of opened your eyes to an industry that you probably never thought, going from dance to roofing, like you said. Like,
I always thought I was going to own a dance studio. You know, like that was what I always thought. So
that's fascinating. So kudos to companies who offer internships and allow students to kind of get that exposure into an industry that you wouldn't think about. So did you go to college for this?
No, I did not.
And I love that even more because we were talking about this as well, that college is not for everybody, and that hands-on experience that you can get at an early age, even, you know, being a mom at a very young age and can do that. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So of course, when my daughter was born, it changed everything. You know, you're thinking about college, but truth be told, I didn't really have a true direction. You know, I thought about, I would love to own a dance studio, but I didn't really have like a true calling of what I thought I was going to do. And then she came along, and I was like, well, I guess the Lord knew that that was how my life was going to go. But so when I, you know, it was out of necessity. I needed to provide for her. You know, I wanted to have a home for her, and I just wanted to prove that I could do it. You know, you know, there's a lot of, it's not the ideal situation, you know, but I was bound and determined to prove myself. And so when I got that opportunity for that job, I was like, well, it was just huge to me because I really needed it at the time, but it was also something that I was interested in and I knew a little bit about. And so my boss there, she was tough. She was a tough lady, but I am forever thankful to her for that, because I think that it was her toughness that showed me I could do it. I could learn hard things, I could do hard things, and she did not give me any slack. So I love that, though. I think that really shaped me.
Some of that now?
I do, yes. I do use it. I do draw on what I learned from her. I also learned a lot from just dance, but the way that the owners ran their business, they were a partnership. They're still going strong today. So a lot of my business understanding came from them. College just wasn't in the cards for me, and I always thought that I might go back, but once I started down this trajectory, it just wasn't really necessary. And so I did simultaneously, while I was working there, I taught dance as well, because it was just part of, you know, what I love to do. So I still continued with that. But then after a while, when my husband and I got married, we decided that I would stay home with the kids for a little while. So I got to do that, and that was something that I also always wanted to do, was be able to be a stay-at-home mom. And I enjoyed my time as a stay-at-home mom, but I don't think that I could go back and do it now, because that is the hardest job on earth. Most definitely. It is a very, very hard job. So when my husband decided, you know, let's try this, of course we put our life savings into it, and I was like, well, I'm not going to put our life savings into something that I'm not going to help you with. So I just kind of jumped in it head first with them, and I didn't know anything about running a business. You know, I knew some things about building from my past, and we just jumped in head first, and so college just never really came back around, I guess, just by design. So
and there's so many different certifications, right, and things like that are very niche in your area that you need. So talk about some of those.
I started out getting our home builder's license so we could do a little bit bigger jobs. And the way we started out with new construction, because there's so many builders around here, so much new construction going on, the licensing was not really necessarily an issue at the time, because you were working under somebody else. But, you know, as we grew, we wanted to do bigger jobs. And so, you know, it was up to me to research, you know, how do we get the proper licensing and position ourselves to be able to do that. So it started with the home builder's license. So I went and took that test and passed it, and I was like, okay, I can do this, you know. It's nerve-wracking, but I, you know, got through the first one, and then we were like, we really need a general contractor's license to be able to make that next jump. So that was my next big hurdle to get over. So went and got my general contractor's license.
What's the prep work like for something like that?
It is a lot of studying. It is an open book test, but as we all know with open book tests, you have to know.
Harder.
Yes, you have to know exactly where that one sentence is, so you can answer the question exactly as they're asking it.
And the comprehension aspect of it too, you know, of course, is critical.
Yes, and those tests are only 6 to 8 hours. Yeah, so it's actually hilarious, because you have all these books, and so, you know, some people bring them in crates, but I loaded them up in a suitcase and just rolled them in. So the test proctor, was like, this is interesting. But so just roll my suitcase in and take my test. But it is a very nerve-wracking process. And when you know that your business is riding on this, like, it is up to me to get it.
Right.
Because my husband was, just busy out in the field, and not that I wasn't busy, but it was something that I felt like I could take on. And so that kind of propelled us into being really pushing that woman on, because he's like, Lauren, women need to understand that they can do this, and there's a space here for women. So
I love that your husband is the champion of that.
He really is. He is very empowering to me, and whenever I'm feeling discouraged, he's the one that's like, you can do this. There's a space for women here, and you need to, buckle up, saddle up, and so he gives me the courage and the power to do that. So we did the Alabama contractor's license, got that, and then we expanded into Florida, and Florida is a very hard state to get anything done in.
So Tampa, as Lauren and I have talked about, they started an office there, just recently.
Recently.
Still has that new office smell.
Yes.
That's my hometown where I'm from. So I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So why Florida? Why Tampa?
Florida. So my husband's actually from Florida. He's from Pensacola.
Okay.
So just the relationships that we have there, it was just a natural progression to go in that direction. And then Tampa, we just heard, was a really good market. We try to kind of take the word from our suppliers, manufacturers, and just kind of listen to what's out there and what areas are really growing and have a need for it. So Tampa was just like the next natural progression. We had some contacts down there, and so we're like, well, all we can do is try, and it's gone really well. We were talking about before spring break, that's where we got to go, and I do really love to go really know about the markets that we're in and visit them and really try to look at it from a perspective of somebody that lives there. Know the lay of the land, so to speak, and understand what's in the area. So we pride ourselves in being truly a part of the communities that we have offices in.
That's awesome. That's important.
It's very important, and each market has so much to offer. So it's a lot of fun.
It does. It does. So let's go back to just hearing a little bit about your story as not only an entrepreneur and kind of joining forces with your husband, but starting that business when you guys did. Did your husband have any experience in running a business previously?
No.
Or talk through some of the challenges that you guys dealt with when you were getting going.
Okay.
And like, had I known this back then,
Oh, there's so many of those, isn't there?
Right.
So neither one of us have a college education. However, he did go to college for computer, but nothing business. So both of us had to navigate this together. But we both had a vision of what it looked like to a certain degree. We wanted to change the paradigm of what roofing contractors look like. And so right around the time we opened, the big tornadoes hit in our area. So you had a lot of roofing companies coming in trying to capitalize on that, and there was a negative connotation associated with that. And we looked at that situation, we were like, we want to change this. We want this to be a different thing, offer something different to people, because not only are people trusting you with their homes, that they're trusting you with their livelihoods, which that is their biggest asset outside of our kids and our family.
Well, and when those are not typically topics that a lot of people have common knowledge on enough to be able to, so you put a lot of trust in someone like that that they're going to do what needs to be done, and you hear some of these lawsuits around construction projects that weren't built to code, and thankfully nowhere around here, but I mean, it's just
there's so many things that can happen, and there are bad contractors out there that do take advantage of people. I think the thing too about roofing is that you need it when you need it. So sometimes you don't have time to run around and do all this research on different companies, because you've got to have the roof. You can't have rain pouring into your house. So so both of us kind of navigated it from a perspective of my experience was just seeing, like I said, how the dance company business owners, Beth and Julie, ran their business, and they always ran it from a point of just trying to offer really good product and really good service to people, that they were not going to change anything about who they were. They were going to stay true to who they were. And so that's that's how Terry and I kind of approached it. We wanted to stay true to our values. Yeah. We wanted to offer value to people. And, so it evolved from there as far as, what our model, how we modeled ourselves. I always joke that too, like I didn't know anything about QuickBooks, and I kind of handle more the accounting and the financial stuff. So here I was, I had been a stay-at-home mom. I did have some construction knowledge, but as far as like starting from the ground up and really being able to, outside of just like, okay, we have this office space, we have these computers, we have this program, and I don't know how to use it. So I was really
self-taught stuff happening, right?
Yes, and thank goodness for all the resources that we have here. So somebody, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody was like, you really need to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce. So they had some classes, and I literally took accounting classes and QuickBooks classes there.
At the Huntsville Mouse?
Yes, at the Huntsville. And so I talk a lot, and I'm on the board of the Chamber in the Athens Limestone. And so I do like to bring that up a lot because these resources that are offered in the community are huge. And without them, we would not be where we are today. Yeah. So yeah, I think that, just our business knowledge has come from the motivation of, and our business plans have come from the motivation of really wanting to offer this product, this turnkey service to people that's dependable, that they know when they call us that we're going to be there, we're not going to be gone tomorrow, and that we can offer that to our communities. So that's been really important to us.
That's awesome.
And so that motivates us. Yeah. Of course, there are a lot of mistakes made along the way, and
but you know what?
You learn so much.
You do with it. Yes.
Right. And it's the same whether you're a business owner or you work for somebody. No matter what, there's mistakes that are going to come across. But the best thing that you can do is just learn from them and move forward. And so that's always been our goal, is just to learn from whatever mistakes. Yeah. And we both say to each other, anytime something happens, there's a mistake, or we're like, oh man, I wish we would have done this differently. On the other side of it, we're always way better. It may be stressful trying to navigate through it, but we're always so much better on the other side of it. So we value those things. Though nobody wants to make mistakes or nobody wants to have challenges, they are valued because we learn so much from them.
Absolutely,
so,
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot to be said about what your kids see from that too.
Yes.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you have 5 kids.
Four kids. Yeah, four. Yeah.
4, excuse me. And then and one of which, Lili-Grace, the oldest, is works with you guys now. So I'd love to hear from a perspective of being a mom and seeing the kids' experience of watching you and Terry kind of go through this, because like my kids are the same. They've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, you know. And there's a lot of, I hear a lot of around that question of like, how's the work-life balance?
Yeah.
I'm like,
what is that?
I don't know about balance. I think it's just all in one, and we just kind of deal. So talk a little bit about how your family kind of supports and.
Yeah. So there were plenty of times that like it was spring break, and my kids had to understand that we were not going on spring break because I've got to work. We've got things that need to get done, and so Lili-Grace joined us, and when she came to us, she was like, I'm not feeling the college scene. Like, we had toured some colleges, and she just really wasn't feeling it. We'd always told our kids, like, if you have a plan, we will support that. We don't expect that that's like the number one thing is you have to go to college. But if you have a plan, don't come to us and say, we're not going to go to college but have no idea what you're going to do.
I'm not going to work, I'm going to stay here.
If you're just going to like figure it out as you go, that's different. But so she approached us about that, and she was like, I think I really want to work with y'all and maybe get my license one day. And I was like, I think that's a fantastic idea. So she'd actually been doing the online school. So she still cheered at her high school, but it worked out really well because I was able to go ahead and bring her on in and let her just kind of sit around it and listen to it. So she'd do her schoolwork at work with me, and then I'd give her little things here and there, and she decided she really liked it. So so she's been with us now for 2 years, and so she's just learning the ropes. And so I've just kind of tried to work her through like all aspects of the business. And I have a syllabus, which she loves. She loves when I bring the syllabus out.
You have a syllabus? So you're going to have to unpack that. I know. So what is that?
So I actually just drew on it from some of the business books that I have, and then some of the things that like just each department that we have at work. I've just kind of made a syllabus for each one. So I've made, like right now she's been sent with our human resources manager and kind of learning all the aspects about managing that. She learned how to manage, like orders, purchase orders, entering bill, just those simple basic business things, but every time I bring the syllabus out, she's like, great, what's next? She's a very good sport with it, but
I love that though. But you have to document processes. That way you can be able to train people and bring them on board.
Exactly. And it has helped from that aspect too, just having that framework to pull from, to make it a little easier for training. So I didn't know, I was making the syllabus for her, that I was kind of, creating a little more framework for training. So.
But I bet that helped you kind of think through ways to craft it, right?
Yeah,
if someone's
for sure.
in maybe that doesn't have the working knowledge that you do, like how can we position this in a way that
and that's something that you forget once you get, like, I was very green when we started this. I didn't know what I didn't know, you know, and you often forget that once you kind of get rolling and you get in a groove and you hire new people, that, just the vernacular of all the construction terms, and understanding that, and I have to remember that. And so when you think about it from perspective of, you're grooming this person to help kind of run your business, you kind of think of it from a different way. So it really has helped with kind of going back to the very basics and building that foundation from there. So, she's joined us. My other two sons, they, so I have one that's like, I do not want to own a business. I do not want like, that is not for me. Like, I see the stress and, the stress that you guys go through, which it is a stressful job. It can be very stressful. Construction is very fast paced, so it can be stressful. So he's seen that, and for him, he's like, my other son is kind of interested, but he's not sure if construction would be the way he'd go, but he's kind of interested in owning a business. So it's just interesting to kind of see how they view it differently. You know, they've all kind of had to grow up with us. So at the time, my youngest son was 2 when we started this, so he's really kind of grown up through that. And I would take them to work with me, and they'd have to sit up at the office with me and entertain themselves so I could work at times. And I think that's really shaped them. But it's just interesting to see how some, I got one that's like, absolutely not, and then the other two are like, we want to, we want to do this.
Interesting. So what a great opportunity for them to get exposure at a young age, just to what is out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where if you guys weren't so involved in it and talking about it all the time, that experience for them would be very different.
Right.
So, and I love the fact that, like as you mentioned earlier, that Terry's a big champion for women in this space too, which is awesome, and that's great to see.
He really is, and he's championed her as well. When she said this, he was like, I think that's a fantastic idea, and he's been all on board with it. So I am really thankful for that too, because I think the statistic is it's like 14% of the construction industry is women. Only 14%. Wow. I mean, that is a very small number. And women do have a lot to offer in this space, I feel like. So
any reason as to why that is? Why you think that is?
Well, my opinion of it,
made, but
there are. Well, I will say this. A lot of the times people will ask me, "Oh, so you work for your husband?" I still to this day get that. We have really made a big push. I don't always love to like put myself out there. You know what I mean? Like I don't always like love to hear my own voice and things like that. But he's been the one that's really pushed me to be like, you've got to get out there and say this when I would come home and complain. Like, do you know, they said, do you work for your husband? And he'd be like, well, the only way to change that is to really educate people that we are woman owned. And I'm like, you know what, you're right.
He works for me.
And I do say that. I'm like, well, actually, he works for me. But he loves that. He really loves that. And I think that we both kind of like the idea of spearheading something in our industry. And he enjoys that just as much as I do. So we're able to support each other in that way. So it's really cool. So we've kind of drawn on that whole bias as kind of our driving principles of like marketing and really putting it out there and really creating an awareness. But I do think that it is just an expectation that we as a society, you just view construction kind of more as male dominated.
Absolutely.
I actually had somebody, it was a professional male that was doing some work for us, and he kept saying, well, I really need to talk to your husband about this. And I finally was like, I'm the one that handles this side of our business. You're not going to talk to my husband about it. And he wasn't really too happy about it. So we quit using that professional for what we needed. And I was just like, if you can't align with this, not that it's all or nothing, but if you can't respect me and my space, I think that can be a problem though, whereas people sometimes view, well, where's your husband at? And let's talk to him about it. Most people normally back down pretty quickly when I'm like, well, I'm the president and I can answer all the questions that you have. Absolutely. They do tend to back down and respect that. But I think it is just that bias and that expectation that it has just traditionally been a male-dominated industry. And women, it is hard for a woman in this industry because of those expectations. But I think just the confidence level of women versus men and just the way we approach things makes it a little bit harder for women to come into it, because just the approach is so different, and it is a very aggressive industry. You know, and women are not traditionally as aggressive in a lot of ways as men, but we are in other ways. And so I think that's what my husband's really seen. He's like, where you're aggressive, I kind of pull back, and vice versa. So that's how we really play off of each other. And that's where I think women really do have a place in this industry. And as far as like nurturing too, you know, there are a lot of safety issues in our industry. There's a lot of accidents that happen in our industry. There's been a few this year in this area, and every time I hear of one, it just reminds me to go back and make sure that we're doing everything that we can. But that is where I think women in the nurturing side of us, that we really care about the people. We want everybody to be safe and well taken care of. That's a space I think for women that could really help in this industry. You know, really like not making it all about let's get everything done today or yesterday. You know, I always say everything needs to be done yesterday. That's always my joke. But I think, you know, women saying no, let's slow down and take the time to make sure we do this right. And I find myself saying that often because, you know, sometimes it's like, let's make sure we're selling and let's make sure we're doing all these things. But I'm like, let's step back for a minute and make sure that our processes are perfect. Let's step back for a minute and make sure that our safety is perfect. You know, so that's where I kind of slow everybody down to a certain level, and I'm like, are we doing the right things? You know, asking those questions. So that's where I think women really have a place here, and have a very important role in just kind of balancing out that masculinity to really make sure that the people are taken care of.
Yep, absolutely. And I would imagine that's something that unfortunately falls by the wayside because of the demands in the construction industry with shortage of raw materials and supplies and all sorts of stuff. So a lot of I would imagine those things are just sort of, you know, go unnoticed at times, you know.
And it's easy in the construction industry to just, like you say, everything happens so quickly, just to try to get through the motions to meet that deadline, that it is very important to have that time to sit back and like our safety protocols the best that they can be. That's a huge thing in our industry.
I could see that. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'm just curious because you guys have been in business for 11 years and a big there was a moment that happened in that time frame called the pandemic. But I'm curious how that impacted you all, if you're still sort of you know, recovering from some of that, what you see from your perspective in this space as far as the impacts and how that's changed things.
So for us, the positive side of the pandemic for us is that we were in the industries that were allowed to continue. You know, we were still open. We were still moving.
Canceled.
We were not canceled. You know, we had to learn how to navigate those things. But for us, you know, it was very interesting because we actually were the busiest that we had ever been, which is crazy to say.
Home projects, I know.
Yes, I think that is really what happened, is that everybody's sitting at home and they're like, oh my goodness, I got to fix this or fix that. So yeah, a lot of remodeling projects, or they decided, I want to build a whole new house. You know what I mean? Like, so I really think that helped the building industry in a lot of ways. Now, where we were met with challenges, we're definitely with the materials, labor shortages, navigating those things, because now the demand has increased, but we're having a hard time with navigating getting all the materials we need to actually meet that demand. So we had to get pretty resourceful as far as really going to our manufacturers, going to our suppliers and saying, like, we need to know how much you're going to be able to supply us with so that we can plan ahead, because we don't want to get out there and make promises that we can't keep. So that was kind of an important thing for us, was to really align with our manufacturers and suppliers and make sure that those relationships were strong enough to ensure that we were able to get the materials that we needed. And the same thing with labor, you know, make sure that our labor was going to be dependable, you know, that they weren't going to move off somewhere else because they think that there's better opportunities elsewhere. And I think that we're really blessed with where we live too, because you know, the areas that we're in don't slow down normally. There's always jobs coming here, so those people need houses.
Needs to be a little
we're kind of at a little bit of a bubble. So it did really change a lot of how we approach things, as far as making sure ahead of time that we have what we need to do these jobs. And whereas before, you know, it wasn't an issue. So, but yeah, we were very busy, which was very interesting to us. Yeah, you know, when you're sitting here and you're watching the stocks drop and everything seems like it's falling apart, and there was that day that I was like, I don't know if we're going to make it out of this. But then the phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing. So I think, like you say, everybody was sitting at home and like, we got to fix this, or we need to build something all new, and that's kind of what happened.
Good.
I think.
So you guys didn't have to let anybody go or anything like that?
No, we did not have to, and in fact, we ended up having to hire more people, which was a good thing too, because people needed those jobs as well. So, so yeah, I feel like we were really, really lucky in that regard.
Whew. Congratulations!
Yeah, thank goodness.
I know. Yeah. I know. Well, you know, and it almost. I would imagine that to a lot of people, it kind of made them do a little bit of a reset on what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Right.
And how can you be part, you know, if you're not, how can you be in an industry that's going to survive some of these tumultuous things that frankly you just can't really anticipate, you know?
Right.
And I don't know that anybody anticipated that happening.
No, none of us did,
you know? But, we certainly did learn a lot from it, that's
we
for
did.
sure.
Yes, we did.
So switching gears a little bit, I want to kind of talk to you as about a mom.
Yeah.
You know, so being a mom and having kids and being a working mom and doing all the things that you've done, how do you kind of keep yourself grounded and ensure that your kids are straight and narrow? And honestly, personally, owning a business and you know that's a really hard thing to do.
Hard,
and it's the balancing act of making sure you're present, you're there, yet you're still. How do you kind of juggle it all?
That's a great question. So with 4 kids ranging all the way from 20 to age 6, you know, that can be a challenge. I am lucky in the fact that my 20-year-old is very helpful. You know, as she can drive, so she does help me out a lot. But my husband and I both, along with her, we try to tackle it all 3 together. Now that she's at that age and she can help, before she was at that age, my husband and I still try to tackle it together. But it can often mean, you know, the good thing about owning your own business is you can kind of make your own hours, but they are driven by your customers as well. But what I've been able to find is that I can get a lot done while they're at school and still be at the baseball field. And if I've got to finish up at night and, you know, have some late nights, sometimes that's just what it takes. And I'm willing to do that so that I can keep that balance and make sure that I'm there for baseball games. I'm there for, you know, to take my youngest to choir. She loves to go to choir at church, and there for her. And she also has special needs, so it requires a lot of doctor's appointments, you know, and taking her to therapies and things like that. And so, you know, I may just take my computer with me while she's at therapy and knock stuff out while I'm sitting in the car. And I think that as moms and entrepreneurs, we just kind of learn to be resourceful like that. We just work with what we got, whether our office is our car for the day, or if it's like sitting at the ballpark and you got an email from the phone, you know, while you're watching a baseball game, or you know, that's just kind of how I try to balance it. Just find the times where I can to knock stuff out. And I'm a big believer in time blocking and, you know, trying to batch everything that I can, like things together. So that has really helped me with just being efficient as, you know, as a mom and as a businesswoman. So
I'm curious. Tell me about your time blocking approach. So, how do you kind of manage? Like, what does your management of your time look like on a weekly basis?
I read so many books about it, but a few things that really, really resonated with me was like having certain days that you do things, you know. So, you know, I'm always trying to look at bills. What do we owe people on Mondays? Or, you know, I'm trying to look at what we need, what is being received on like Tuesdays or whatever. So, you know, I have certain days that are devoted to certain things, and that way I know those tasks are getting done every week. Because, like we say with the building industry and any industry, especially for a business owner, you're going so fast that things can easily fall by the wayside. So I found that having themed days of certain things that I tackle, you know, every Monday I know I'm going to do this, this, and this. And every Tuesday, same thing, you know, reviewing contracts or looking through, you know, what customers do we need to go back and maybe talk to again, make sure we're getting paid. What do I need to do with licenses? Is it time to renew things? Do we need to add to our licenses? So, you know, I just have different days that I look at all those things. So I came up with the themed days, and I can't remember who it was what book that was from, but that was revolutionary for me. Just to make sure that I was consistently tackling everything that needed to get done. And then also like things together. So, you know, as long as it's not pressing, you know, I'll stick it in a folder for like the next week when I touch on that again. I'm also a big believer in trying to touch things the minimal amount, you know, that you can. So like try to touch things only once or twice, get it knocked out before you, instead of just letting it sit there. And maybe you pick it up and look at it, put it down, and you know what I mean?
What do I do with it? I don't know.
I don't feel like thinking about this right now. But I'm a big believer in trying to touch things the least amount of times that you can to try to get it knocked out. So that's those are a few of my little my little hacks for trying to get things knocked out.
Okay. Any productivity or time blocking books that you would recommend?
Let's see. I think the 80-20, that was a really good one for me. Also the Miracle Morning was a great one too, to kind of get your day started, because I do think that it's super important to like get yourself centered and grounded at the beginning of the day. So I have a morning ritual and routine that I try to go through just to kind of make sure that my brain is ready for the day ahead. I think we all need to kind of do that.
What's the one thing you do not skip on?
I try to never skip on reading the Bible. So I've read through the Bible. This is probably my 5th year to read through it completely. Wow. So I just use the Bible app, and it gives me, but I try to make sure that that's the one thing that I do every single day, and take my vitamins, because we all need our energy.
Well, you get your energy from the Bible, and from your vitamins, right?
That's
Spiritual
right.
energy and physical energy.
Physical energy, and I love to try to move in the mornings. It doesn't always happen, but if I can squeeze some yoga in, I love to try to do that. But if I can't, I try to squeeze it in the afternoon. But I do think movement is super important, just to get your blood flowing and stretching and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like my morning ritual. I try to never skip those things. So
I love that. I love that. Okay, so I've got one last question.
Okay.
So when you think about Lili-Grace, for example, and you even think about your younger kids, knowing now what you know, and kind of going into an industry that you are a minority for sure,
right,
and are probably still questioned in your ability for the simple fact of because you're a woman. What are some of those pieces of advice looking at your kids to say, knowing now what I know, this is kind of...
the biggest thing I like to say is, don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, figure out, and I don't mean that in, like plow over people and like, but it's just that resourcefulness. Like, if you come to a point where no is said to you, but you really know that this is part of your goal, figure out how to turn it into a yes.
Yeah.
What do I need to do to turn this into a yes? Study up on that. And I think that that's important, because roadblocks can be debilitating to people at times. But I think that it's what you can do with those roadblocks to get them out of your way. What can I do to wiggle around it? Or, maybe you do have to blast through it, whatever it may be. But that's always been a big thing for me, and that hard work, hard work always does pay off. Nothing's going to be handed to you. Nothing's been handed to me. Everything that we have is built on our own sweat equity, so to speak. So, don't expect that you're ever going to be handed anything, but you are going to have to put in that work if you want to have the life that you want to live. And that's my other thing too, that I always tell them. I think a lot of emphasis is always put on, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, and all these dreams that you have, because like I said, being a roofer wasn't necessarily my dream as a little girl, but having a certain lifestyle and what I wanted to be able to provide for my family was always in the back of my mind. So what profession will help you get to the lifestyle that you want to have? How much do you really want to work? How much do you want to depend on others, or how much do you want to depend on yourself? And so I think that that's a really important thing to think about. What kind of life do I want to live versus just what do I want to do? Because we romanticize all these jobs, and then sometimes when you get to it, it's like, well, this is not as great as I thought it was going to be. And I think we see a lot of people pivot, because maybe what they thought they wanted to do really wasn't what they wanted to do. So I always am telling my kids, like, think about the lifestyle that you want to have. You may want to have a life like the one that we lead, and great, these are the things you can do to get that. You may want to do something different, like my son that is like no business. He's more wants to be a doctor, so that's kind of the path that he wants to take, which my sister's a doctor, so he has that resource to kind of like, well, what is your life like, and he sees it through her eyes, so I think that that's very important. What kind of life do you want to have?
Well, I love that that sort of prompt delivered in that way, where it's about the lifestyle that you want to live, not what label or what job you think you want to do, because having those values are transferable regardless of industry that you're in.
Exactly.
And, I mean, and if it's roofing, or if it's baking, or if it's medical, going to the medical field, I mean, as long as you're true to your values of what you want and the family that you want to create, you can kind of build your world around that a little bit.
And I think it gives you that flexibility to really find what you love, and enjoy what you do. I I love getting up, going to work every morning, and trying to make a difference, you know, in this industry, and trying to pave the way for women in this industry. And that's kind of become, you know, my MO in life is just to, you know, my goal in life, and it's not just a job anymore for me. You know, it's a true purpose. So, so you know, for me, and I think all of us moms, we want our kids to find their true purpose, and so, you know, that's just what I hope for them.
I love that, and that you're paving the way for women in construction. So watch out.
Yeah, that's right.
I love it. I love it. Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited to see what the next 10 years, 11 years brings to you guys.
I can't wait to see either.
I know. So we'll start with Tampa, and in a couple years, we'll just you'll be scattered throughout the Southeast. Right?
That's right. Yeah, that is actually one of our bigger goals, is just to be like one of the biggest roofing and siding suppliers and product suppliers in the Southeast, you know, so hopefully that's
awesome.
You know, hopefully I can come back in a few years and say we're the biggest one in the Southeast, because that's our goal.
Yeah, I think you will. You heard it here first.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of you.
Yeah.
And again, paving the way for women. I love that, and Terry as well.
Yeah,
there to support that and help to kind of propel that flame. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're
Thanks
welcome.
for having me.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.